Stefan, dear, where's that golden bracelet I bought when we traveled to Egypt?
I don't know, Mom. You must have misplaced it again. Honestly, what's the need of expensive jewelry if you never wear them? You just keep misplacing everything. She sat in front of her enormous dressing mirror, which had gold edges, and was having her makeup done by Joan Marpierre, the most famous and most well-known makeup artist in the world. Just one of my mother's rich friends. Just then, my dad walked into the room. I could smell him before I could see him because of the perfume he always had on. Tom Ford Diamond Edition. Only 10 bottles of that perfume were made, and my dad had 6 of them. They each went for about $275,000 a bottle and were notoriously hard to get. He also had on a gray Giorgio Armani pinstripe suit, which also cost tens of thousands of dollars. My father had expensive taste, and I couldn't blame him for that. My father grew up in an extremely poor household with 5 siblings who often went for days without having anything to eat. He saw firsthand the effects of poverty and hardship and swore to do whatever it took to never be poor. From a young age, he had to work numerous hours a day, working several jobs to make ends meet. He toiled endlessly until one day he finally hit the jackpot. Fast forward many years into the future, and my father was now an extremely rich man. He was a billionaire who owned one of the biggest, if not the biggest telecommunication companies in the world. He also had several companies which made him millions of dollars a year. I was born into this life of extreme luxury, and it's all that I've ever known. A lot of people envy me and wish their family was as rich as mine. Click the link and subscribe button, and who knows, maybe you'll someday become as rich as we are. You can only find out if you try. For as long as I could remember, we had always lived in this enormous mansion on the hillside surrounded by a lot of maids, butlers, and cooks who all served me. They were at my every beck and call. My mother always told me that very few people in the world had or will ever have the kind of wealth we had, and that I was special, and I believed it too. Nobody was allowed to come close to me without my permission, and whenever I walked through the corridors in the mansion, everyone in the vicinity had to stop what they were doing until I was out of there. Despite the abundance of maids and butlers, my mom was always very particular about who interacted with me. She insisted that she was the only one who could attend to my needs. I was always treated differently in school, and I liked it. I remember when Mr. Johnson got fired because he wouldn't stop one kid from sneezing so much. I was the one who demanded his firing, and also the expulsion of the sneezing student. Who did they think they were? The day for college resumption finally arrived, and I was driven there in a limo. It was one of the most prestigious colleges in the country, and I was sure I was going to enjoy it.
All right, my special boy. Take care of yourself and don't forget to call me every day.
My mom said as she gave me a peck on the cheek. Mom, you know I'm not still a child, right? I replied as I got out of the limo. My dad, who was also in the car, handed me a wad of cash and bid me farewell.
Good luck, son.
I struggled to stuff the enormous wad of cash in my pockets as I walked to my lecture hall, and as soon as I turned a corner, I felt something smack into me and knock me over. What just happened? I said to no one in particular as I opened my eyes and struggled to regain my composure. On the floor with me was a girl.
Are you blind?
She asked. What?
I said, are you blind? Because only a blind person would have walked into me the way you did. Maybe if you were paying attention to where you were actually going, instead of just walking around like a headless giraffe, I wouldn't now be on the floor.
She screamed at me as she got up and walked away, leaving me stunned. No one had ever yelled at me before. I managed to get up and find my lecture hall, but because I was late, there was only one seat available. I sat down before I realized that sitting beside me was the same girl who had knocked me over. We gave each other cold stares as the class continued. I learned that her name was Elena, and we were both studying the same course. I also painfully learned that she was smarter than me as she had the highest GPA out of everyone in our class after the end of semester results were announced. I came second, and after the scolding I received from my parents, I decided to befriend Elena, learn her secrets and become better than her, and then get rid of her after I had gotten what I wanted. Second year rolled out, and I made a peace offering to Elena. I got her a brand new iPad and MacBook, and also apologized for my previous behavior. And soon after, we hung around each other and studied together. I became much nicer to her, but after a while, she said she had to tell me something. Is there a problem? I asked, worried.
Yes, there is, and the problem is you.
Elena replied, staring straight into my eyes. I began to panic. What had I done? Did she hear anything bad about me? But I'd been treating her nicely, right? But I treat you nicely. How can I be the problem? A bewildered me asked again.
And that there is the problem. You treat me nicely, but you are a very big douche to everyone else. That's not how it's gonna work. You either treat everyone nicely or this little arrangement we have here ends. You will have to find someone else to study with and tutor you if your behavior doesn't change.
I didn't have anything else to say, so I quietly agreed to her condition, and at the end of that particular semester, we ended up with the same GPA. The more time we spent together, the more I realized something. I realized that little by little I was changing. I noticed it when I wanted to publicly embarrass someone, but I stopped to think about how it would make the person feel. The Steven of before didn't give a hoot about how people felt. He just did what he wanted to do when he wanted to do it. And then it happened. By the end of my third year in college, I finally surpassed Elena. I now had the highest CGPA in class. But instead of getting rid of Elena, I resolved to keep her around and planned to ask her out. It happened when we had resumed for the fourth year. I called Elena to meet me in the school cafeteria, and there I sat waiting, but she didn't show up. I was disappointed, along with the crowd I had gathered to witness the spectacle I had planned. As soon as I saw her in class, I approached her, but she instantly rejected me. I tried numerous times, but they were all met with the same response, and it went on for the rest of the year, which made me angry. I wasn't only angry at her behavior, I was angry because of all I had spent on her. I felt used and betrayed. Throughout the year, she didn't even utter a single word to me, and that hurt me more. I channeled all my feelings of hurt and betrayal into my studies, and I decided that I was going to give this year my all. It was going to be the best year for me, and I studied like I'd never studied before, and it paid off handsomely. Not only did I still have the highest GPA in class, I had a perfect GPA, as I had A's in every single one of my courses that semester. Although I had achieved this feat, I still wasn't happy. I was home for the summer and my parents were extremely excited about my results. This was what they had always wanted, and they were so overjoyed that they instantly began planning a family vacation to Greece. I was walking around the hallways of the mansion one day when I overheard some of the maids gossiping. They were whispering to each other and talking in hushed tones. I hated it when people whispered around me, as it always made me feel like they didn't want me to know about whatever secret they were talking about. I was about to walk in there to scold them for gossiping, but I stopped as I heard one of them say something that sounded like Elena. Out of curiosity, I hid behind a pillar and listened in on their conversation. They were talking about a girl who was invited to the house and was seriously warned against coming close to me. I decided to come out of hiding and confront the maids. I showed them a picture of Elena on my iPhone and asked if she was the one they were talking about. They replied in the affirmative, and my legs pounded on the exquisite wooden floors as I ran to my parents' room to confront them about it.
Yes, dear, I invited her over to warn her to stay away from you.
My mother replied after I confronted her. It's none of your business who I interact with, and you had no right to say that to Elena, I shouted back angrily.
Well, it is my business, son. You are a special, special boy, and you should not be interacting with just anybody. I did this for you, son, to help you get to the next level. That girl was nothing but a distraction,
Mom said quietly, reaching out her hand to me. As I stood there, I could feel nothing but anger coursing through my body. And in a few minutes, I was out of the mansion and driving to Elena's place with my suitcase packed. I met her mom at the door and I broke down in tears as I told her about everything. She felt bad for me and invited me in. She even called down Elena and explained to her what had happened. Her mom soon left us alone, and all I could do was stare at Elena with tears still pouring down my face. After a few minutes of silence, Elena shifted her chair, stood up, and walked towards the kitchen counter, returning with a wipe.
I understand,
She said as she dried my eyes with the wipe.
I'm sorry for how I treated you all throughout this year. You didn't deserve it, and I should have given you a chance to explain.
She continued while looking into my eyes. I don't blame you. I know how it must have hurt you. You probably thought that I was the one who put them up to it.
That's what I thought. I thought you were just a coward hiding behind your parents to get rid of me, but I know better now,
She said, beginning with a smile. We made up and I drove back home that night. My mom was worried about me as she had called me numerous times, but I refused to pick up. She ran out of the door as soon as she saw my car pull into the driveway.
I'm sorry, dear. I thought it was what was best for you.
"You don't always know what's best for me, Mom. You've got to stop interfering in my life. It's my life, not yours," I replied. We had a long talk, which lasted several hours, and my mom apologized at the end of it. She also promised to not interfere with my life anymore. I and Elena met up numerous times after that day, and I soon proposed to her. She said she loved me and would gladly accept my proposal on the condition that I stopped being rude, mean, and an unlikable person. I promised to work on myself to change, and I did so. And after she had seen a significant change in me, she accepted my proposal, and we got married just a few weeks later. We're currently still married, and we are enjoying every second of it. If you enjoyed this, click the like and subscribe button to enjoy more of such stories.